later. Yeah, I'll later then.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Gucci a sucker. He went and laid them vocals down. She ain't laid them fucking vocals down in that studio. He went in that studio and wrote them lines. That nigga thought of all that sucker shit to say on them records and said that shit. That's all I'm saying, brother. Is he did some sucker.
That's what kind of depresses me. Because it's like when you go down there, it's so like, it's like, damn, you know what I'm saying? There's no money down there, you know what I'm saying? So it just it feel dark.
Gucci Mane attacked Uncle Murda after shocking Snitch claims on Pooh Shiesty, and it all started with one song that may have crossed a line nobody expected.
Supposed to do life and ended up doing 8 years. Sounds like you're snitching to me. Y'all, I've been in the court system my whole life, and I promise you right now, if somebody's facing life and they get 8 years,
what looked like just another rap release quickly turned into something much bigger. Within hours, the conversation shifted from music to accusations, from lyrics to loyalty, and from entertainment to something that felt personal and dangerous for reputations. Because Uncle Murda didn't just react, he went straight at Gucci Mane, publicly calling him a sucker, questioning everything he stands for, and accusing him of switching sides after decades of carrying a completely different image.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Gucci a sucker.
Are rappers turning into civilians now after a certain amount of money?
You can't sound like a civilian after being a gangster for 20-something years. Some street shit happened to this nigga.
Agree.
Now he want to sound like a civilian, and now niggas want to try to push the narrative on some Keisha shit. Keisha making them do it? Nah, that nigga doing some sucker shit.
Look, I'm not saying...
That kind of accusation doesn't just sit quietly. It spreads fast. But this isn't just about two artists going back and forth. This is about something deeper. It's about street code, about what should and shouldn't be said publicly, and about how far someone can go when real-life situations start mixing with music. And what makes it even more intense is that all of this is happening while a federal case is still active, and right in the middle of it all is Pooh Shiesty, watching everything unfold from behind bars, unable to respond directly, but still at the center of every conversation, every lyric, and every accusation being thrown around. Because what Gucci said on that track is what set everything off. The moment that flipped everything was the release of Gucci Mane's track, Crash Dummy, produced by Zaytoven. At first glance, it sounded like another hard-hitting record. But once people started listening closely, it became clear this wasn't just music, it was a message. Gucci didn't keep it subtle. Lines like "you went out like a real crash dummy" and "whole time they plotting against me" immediately caught attention.
You thought you had, you did.
No, I got you on that because on the song, Gucci said, "You a crash dummy," because after that, you still signed to me. So he makes it clear who he's talking about. He said, "I went for a meeting. Y'all had a setup. Y'all were jealous. I'm rich." And by the way, this is another thing I like what he said, because Gucci is a legendary street rapper from what people know.
Not because they were catchy, but because of how closely they seemed to mirror the alleged events tied to the Dallas studio incident. To a lot of listeners, this didn't feel like storytelling or exaggeration. It felt specific, it felt targeted, and more importantly, it felt real. And that's where things started to shift. Because instead of staying silent during an ongoing legal situation, Gucci chose to speak on his own terms, through his own platform, without filters, no interviews, no press statements, just music. In doing that, he essentially gave his version of what happened, but in a way that couldn't be cross-examined or challenged in real time. And the timing made it even more intense. This wasn't years later. This wasn't after everything was resolved. This track dropped while the case was still active, while people were still being held, and while the details were still being argued in court. That alone made people stop and question it. Because when you speak that openly about something that serious, people start asking, why now? And even more importantly, should it have been said at all? And that level of detail is exactly what made people uncomfortable. And then came Uncle Murda, and he didn't hold back for a second. Speaking on the Real Report podcast, Murda went straight to the point. No hesitation, no careful wording, just direct criticism aimed right at Gucci Mane. He called him a sucker, not once, not lightly, but with full conviction. He doubled down, saying the move Gucci made with that track wasn't just questionable, it was flat out wrong.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Gucci a sucker.
In his words, it was sucker staat. And according to him, there were no excuses that could justify it. But he didn't stop there. Murda went deeper, questioning Gucci's entire image. He pointed out that after years of presenting himself a certain way, standing on a certain code, this move didn't match that identity at all. To him, it looked like a complete switch, from gangsta to civilian. And in hip-hop culture, that's not a small accusation. That's a direct hit to credibility.
Are rappers turning into civilians now after a certain amount of money?
You can't sound like a civilian after being a gangster for 20-some years. Some street shit happened to this nigga.
Agree.
Now he want to sound like a civilian, and now niggas want to try to push the narrative on some Keisha shit. Keisha making them do it? Nah, that nigga doing some sucker shit.
Look, I'm not saying...
also suggested that Gucci had misled people along the way, creating an image that others followed, only to now move differently when the pressure was on. That idea alone added another layer to the conversation, turning it from criticism into something that felt almost personal. And then came the part that really stood out. He openly showed support for Pooh Shiesty and Big 30, ending his remarks with "Free Pooh Shiesty and Big 30," making it clear exactly
I agree.
Is he did some sucker shit. I don't like when sucker shit happen like that. And I feel bad for Pooh Shiesty and Big 30 and all them niggas that Gucci misled. You know how many niggas that nigga misled? Had out here banging, selling drugs, killing niggas and doing all this crazy shit. And now he a rat, now he a civilian because his bitch. Get the fuck out of here, man. Gucci a sucker. Man. That shit he did was some sucker shit. I don't feel there's no...
Sitting alongside him added fuel to the conversation, saying that situations like this are becoming more common, that more artists are starting to move like civilians when real pressure hits. And just like that, what started as one song turned into a full-blown debate about identity, loyalty, and how people act when everything is on the line. Because this wasn't just criticism anymore. This was a direct challenge to Gucci Mane's reputation, and in an industry where perception is everything, that kind of challenge doesn't go unnoticed. And he wasn't the only one thinking that. It didn't take long for the conversation to shift, and once it did, there was one word that started showing up everywhere: snitch. And once that label enters the chat, everything...
8 years. Sounds like you're snitching to me. Y'all, I've been in the court system my whole life, and I promise you right now, if somebody's facing life and they get 8 years, I've been telling you guys for how long that 3/4 of these rappers are soft and will snitch. That motherfucker's sitting in his cold ass cell right now like big, and that's fact.
Was one of the first to openly react, and he didn't sugarcoat it. After hearing Crash Dummy, he questioned what he was listening to, suggesting that the level of detail in Gucci's track sounded less like a diss and more like someone telling on a situation. That single reaction opened the floodgates. Suddenly, social media turned into a battlefield. On one side, you had people defending Gucci Mane, saying he has every right to speak on what allegedly happened to him. Their argument was simple: if you are involved in a situation like that, why stay silent? But on the other side, the criticism came fast and loud. People argued that there's a difference between defending yourself and putting certain details into the public, especially when those details could be tied to an active case. To them, it wasn't just about music anymore. It was about what should and shouldn't be said, regardless of the situation.
Yo, forget everything I said. Remember I said Gucci ain't gonna make a statement? Nigga, this is a statement right here. I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Yo, I'm gonna keep it a beat with you. I'm gonna keep it 100. But I ain't gonna even name them right. You know, this is a lot of them. Yo, Charleston White gotta step his snitching game up. This nigga brought a 808, a hot beat. This shit sound like, yo, this nigga got ad-libs for the goddamn storytelling. Brr.
And that's what made this moment so intense. Because in hip-hop culture, being labeled a snitch isn't just an insult, it's a permanent mark. It doesn't fade with time, and it doesn't get ignored. It follows you, reshapes how people see you, and can change your standing overnight. So now, the focus wasn't just on the song, it was on what that song meant. Was Gucci Mane simply telling his side of the story? Or did he cross a line that can't be uncrossed? That tension between reputation and self-defense is what pushed this situation to another level entirely. But this isn't just about opinions, it's tied to a real federal case. Behind all the music, reactions, and online debates, there's a reality that hasn't changed. This situation is still playing out inside a courtroom. Right now, Pooh Shiesty is sitting in Kaufman County Jail in Texas, where he's being held as he waits for trial. No release, no bond, just time passing while the case builds around him. And the charges he's facing are serious. We're talking about kidnapping and conspiracy, all tied back to that now infamous incident at a Dallas recording studio. According to federal authorities, this wasn't random or spontaneous. It was a coordinated situation with multiple people involved. The allegations paint a very specific picture. Prosecutors claim that Gucci Mane was lured to the studio under normal circumstances, only for things to take a sudden turn once he arrived. From there, they allege he was confronted, pressured, and forced to sign paperwork tied to a contract, released reportedly at gunpoint.
The complaint alleges that on January 10th of this year, 3 music industry professionals traveled to Dallas for a scheduled business meeting. Lontrell Williams Jr. arranged this meeting purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims. As alleged, once these 3 men were inside the recording studio, Williams Jr. and 8 co-conspirators, several of whom traveled from Memphis, Tennessee, executed a coordinated armed takeover. As alleged, Williams Jr. produced an AK-style pistol and forced one of the victims to sign a release from the recording contract at gunpoint.
And it didn't stop there. The situation allegedly escalated into robbery, with claims that jewelry, watches, and other valuables were taken during the encounter. All of this combined is what led to a wide-reaching case involving 9 different individuals. Among them, Pooh Shiesty himself, fellow rapper Big 30, and even Shiesty's own father. That detail alone raised eyebrows, because it showed just how deep the situation might go.
8 of the 9 were arrested yesterday in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, Lontrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., also known as Big 30, Kadarius Waters, Demarion Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Corday Johnson, Darian McDaniel, and Terrence Rogers has not been arrested yet, but will be soon.
And when Pooh Shiesty went in front of a judge hoping for release, the outcome didn't go in his favor. Bond was denied, with the court pointing to concerns about community safety, prior history, and the seriousness of the accusations. So while the public debates lyrics and reactions, the legal system is moving forward, step by step. And even now, his legal team is pushing back hard. While Pooh Shiesty himself hasn't spoken publicly, that doesn't mean his side has stayed quiet. Because his lawyer, Bradford Cohen, has been making it clear this case isn't as straightforward as it's being presented. One of the biggest points he raised is the timeline. According to Cohen, it took investigators around 3 months to bring charges after the alleged...
I mean, think about it. They had 3 months to get this stuff. They had 3 months to get warrants. They didn't get warrants that night. They didn't get warrants the next night. They didn't get warrants the next month. They didn't get warrants the month after. They waited 3 months to get warrants on whether or not there's guns, whether or not there's jewelry. How about their cell phones? How about the computers? That gives me great pause when I see a case that takes that long to get warrants, if you believe everything that was said on the evening that it occurs.
And to him, that delay raises serious questions. His argument is simple. If everything that happened that night was as clear-cut as it's being described, why wasn't action taken immediately? Why the wait? Cohen suggests that the answer may lie in the details specifically, in the statements that were collected early on. He claims those statements were inconsistent, possibly unclear, and may have caused hesitation even within federal investigators. In other words, the foundation of the case might not be as solid as it seems. Then there's the Staples detail a moment prosecutors have pointed to as evidence of planning. They claim that Shiesty and his team stopped to print documents before heading to the studio, suggesting that the situation was premeditated. But Cohen pushes back hard on that. He says there's a much simpler explanation that they were printing lyrics. Something completely normal for artists heading into a recording session, especially when multiple people are involved in creating music. No setup, no hidden plan, just preparation for a studio session. And when you line those arguments up together, the timeline, the statements, the Staples visit, you start to see what the defense is building. Not just a denial, but an alternative narrative. And that's what makes this so interesting. Because even without speaking directly, Pooh Shiesty is still sending a message through his legal team, through their arguments, and through every challenge they bring against the prosecution's version of events. A message that says, this story isn't finished yet. But while he stays silent, Gucci is saying more than ever. As the debate kept growing louder online, one thing became impossible to ignore. Gucci Mane's voice wasn't just part of the conversation anymore, it was shaping it. Because Crash Dummy didn't stay in the category of music for long, it quickly became part of the public narrative surrounding the case itself. Every lyric, every line that seemed to reference that night in Dallas started getting picked apart not just by fans, but by commentators, media personalities, and even people familiar with how these cases unfold. And that's where the divide really became clear. On one side, you have people saying Gucci is simply doing what anyone would do, defending himself, telling his version of events the only way he knows how, through music. In that view, the track isn't reckless, it's personal. It's his response to a situation he was directly involved in. But on the other side, the concern runs deeper. Critics argue that putting those kinds of details into a song, while an active federal case is still developing, could influence how the situation is perceived. Not in a legal sense necessarily, but in the court of public opinion, where narratives can shift fast and stick even faster, and that creates a strange tension. Because while the courtroom is supposed to deal in evidence, timelines, and verified facts, the public is reacting to emotion, interpretation, and what feels believable. That gap between those two worlds, legal reality and public perception, is where things start to get complicated and risky. Because once something is said publicly, especially at this level, it can't be taken back. It becomes part of the story, whether it's confirmed, denied, or still being debated. So now, Gucci Mane isn't just an artist releasing music. He's part of a larger narrative that's unfolding in real-time one, where every word carries weight beyond entertainment. And that's where things start to feel bigger than just rap. When you strip away the headlines, the reactions, and the viral moments, what's left is a deeper conflict, one that goes beyond this situation and taps into something that's been debated in hip-hop for years: the clash between code and communication. On one side, there's the idea of a street code, an unspoken set of rules about what stays private, what gets handled behind the scenes, and what should never be put on display for the world to see. That's the lane Uncle Murda is speaking from. To him, there are lines you don't cross, no matter the circumstances. Once something becomes real, once it moves beyond music into actual situations, there's a responsibility to move a certain way. And in his view, that line was crossed. But then, there's the other side of it. The reality the situations evolve. That when someone feels targeted, betrayed, or pulled into something serious, they may choose to respond however they see fit, even if that means breaking from what's expected. That's where Gucci Mane's position seems to land. Not directly stated, but implied through his actions. If something happened to him, he's going to speak on it. No filters, no code, just his version of the truth. And that's where the real tension sits. Loyalty versus self-preservation. Silence versus speaking out. Tradition versus reality. Because in today's industry, those lines aren't as clear as they used to be. Add business into the mix, contracts, money, control, and things get even more complicated. What might start as a disagreement behind closed doors can quickly spiral into something public, emotional, and eventually legal. And that's the bigger lesson in all of this. How fast things can escalate when business, ego, and pressure collide at the same time. Because once it reaches this level, there's no easy reset. No simple conversation to fix it. Everything becomes permanent. And now, everyone is watching how this plays out. When this story first started gaining attention, it was framed like a sudden explosion, Gucci Mane attacking Uncle Murda after being called out. But looking at everything now, it's clear that the attack wasn't physical. It was something else entirely, a clash of words, a battle of perspectives, a collision between how things used to be handled and how they're being handled now. Uncle Murda stood on principle, calling out what he believes crossed the line. Gucci Mane stood on expression, putting his version of events into the world, regardless of how it would be received. And right in the middle of it all is Pooh Shiesty. Silent, locked in, and still the center of a story that continues to unfold without him saying a word publicly. That silence, in a way, has become just as powerful as everything else being said. Because while the music plays, the debates rage, and opinions keep shifting, the case itself is still unresolved. No final answers, no clear ending, just layers of narrative building on top of each other in real time. And that's what makes this moment so unpredictable. Because in the end, it wasn't just a diss track that shook the industry, it was what was said, what it meant, and who it put at risk. Because in a situation like this, words can hit harder than anything else. Let us know your thoughts in comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video to support the channel, subscribe to Holly Hype TV for the latest updates, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Until next time, peace out.